Hello, welcome to this section. I'll just call it load balancers, and this is part one. What load balancers are is basically, in the case of Google Cloud, it's a software solution, meaning you're not really spinning up instances of things, right? So you're configuring something that Google already has in place. And the purpose of it fundamentally is to front end your own applications running on, say, your own GCE instances. So you may have multiple copies of the same kind of, GCE instance running the same application, and you want to be able to spread the traffic between them. And that's what the load balancer will do for you. There's broadly two types, right? One is called a layer 4, which is runs the TCP level or UDP, a very low level networking level kind of load balancer. And then the other one, probably more common, is the layer 7, or also referred to as the HTTPS load balancer. Basically, that's load balancing web traffic. There's another sort of dimension of them is their visibility. They're either internal or external, meaning what I mean by internal, meaning the kinds of machines that are consuming, that are sending traffic to it, are from inside your network. And external means basically they're coming from the internet. And there's this fairly complicated decision tree here on the different flavors. So I just kind of outlined 4, right? There's 2 types and 2 dimensions. And so you can see, we're not gonna go through this in detail, but generally you can see there's external, internal, that's the first decision. And then the first decision after that is basically, in this case, you can see this left one is the layer 7. And then this is the other 3 are all layer 4 kind of traffic. And then you end up on these different kinds of load balancers down here. The internal one's a little bit simpler because you basically just have internal, you got either HTTPS, which is going to be your layer 7, or either TCP or UDP traffic, and that is layer 4. And then you only end up with basically the 2, right? You got the internals, and then you got either a TCP, a UDP, which is the layer 4 load balancer, or you got HTTPS, which is your layer 7. So it's kind of easiest to think of in terms of those 2 dimensions, internal, external, or the layer 4, layer 7. This diagram here really is just to show, we're not going to do this, but for the most part, when you're typically thinking about load balancers in Google Cloud, you're just talking about front-ending services, GCP services itself. And apparently you can do this. You can actually have the same load balancer now, load balance also on-premise services, so things you actually run on your own premise, or maybe even on other clouds if you have connectivity to them. So that's just to illustrate that it's fairly flexible. What we're going to focus here in this video is internal, meaning it's going to serve, the traffic it's serving to is for internal hosts. And we're going to do a layer 7 HTTPS load balancer. We're going to go through the exercise of creating that. Okay, so let's see. Right, so there's actually a surprising number of things you have to set up to get this to work. And we're just gonna go through, it's a fairly complex diagram. Rather than getting hung up on this diagram, we're gonna go through and just do it, okay? And then I'll walk you through the components. So before you can load balance something, you have to have something to load balance, right? And so you have to have a back end. That's what the back ends are. The backends can be a variety of different kind of backends. For example, they can be instance groups, and that's what we're going to do here. But that means basically it's GCE instances, or you can, so you have the managed instance group. We're going to create a regional one. Unmanaged one, that's going to be like if you just add individual instances to a group. And then network input groups have to do with, GKE. We're not going to do that one here, right? And so we're going to basically do the example of a regional managed instance group, just a bunch of GCE instances, like just serving up a web page. So the first thing we need to do is go through the exercise of creating all that. So let's just do that. Before we do that, though, one thing, we're going to run everything internally, right? Because this is all about internal. So I want to just, make sure that all the GC instances do not have a public IP address, because I want to treat this as a purely internal thing. In order to do that, I have to make sure I have running if I can find it. This is from an earlier video. I think I left it in place by accident. You need to have a NAT gateway running in your zone or region. So here I have it running in US Central 1. I already left it there. I forgot to delete it. So if you want to create that, you can go back to an earlier video on creating a gateway. So that's the first thing. But now we need to create an instance template. So let's see, I need to go to here. I need to go to cloud console, cloud. Where is it? It's probably towards the top. Compute engines right here. Instance template. And I have to create an instance template. That's fine name. This is a fine machine type. Let me go to my reminder sheet. What I need to change. I need to change the startup script. Oh, I have to copy the startup script from somewhere. I'm going to pause the video for a second and to grab that startup script. Okay, I'm back. Okay, so what does I need to do? Okay, so you have the NAT, need a startup script. So I actually have that startup script from earlier videos where it just basically installs Apache on it. So, and then just runs a little hello world, right? So we need to paste that into the startup script. So that's under management. Leave everything else default. There's a management tab somewhere here. I can find it. Where's it at? Oh Lord. On the small screen, it's like just a different UI. Oh, there it is. It's under this thing. Management. Startup script must be here somewhere. Okay, there's the startup script. What else do I need? I don't need this anymore. Network tags, right? So we're going to need to create some firewalls here. So we're going to need to create network tags. So we're going to call this the back end. So under networking, network tag back end. Okay. So hit enter. Okay. And then, and I just wanted, because I didn't want to have an external IP address, I need to go under none. So we have no external IP address. So then I just create this. That one should take a second. Then we need to create the managed instance group, which is actually running the instances. We're going to use multiple zones, use above a template instead of instance of 2. Okay, so I can do this. Okay, so this should be done building. Okay, so where is okay, there's that. Manage instance group, create instance group. I want to run it in multiple zones. I want to run it in US Central 1. That's where my NAT is. And I'm going to leave all the defaults except for the number of instances. Oh, I need to also pick the template. We'll let it auto scale, right, with the default settings here, but we want to have a minimum of 2. So I'll scale between 2 and 10. And I should start off by having 2. We're not going to bother with health checks here, just for simplicity. Okay, create. Okay, that'll take a second to create. Okay, so this is where this diagram comes important here. So we'll go back to this diagram and talk about one of the pieces of this that kind of hiding on here. See this little purplish block over here? It says proxy only subnet. So what happens here is the way the flow of your traffic goes, right? what's going to happen is your, I don't know, whatever, you're serving up, your load balancer's running, you got your managed instances here, right? And traffic will flow basically into your, like what's called your internal forwarding rules. So traffic comes in here on an IP address, essentially, that's in your network, right? So it's going to be in this 10.1, whatever network you kind of designate, right? And that traffic will basically flow. I don't really like this diagram, actually. So the flow into basically this blob that is your load balancer, and then it comes out on one of the IP addresses in this other subnet that you will have to create, called your proxy only subnet. And basically that's the address that's going to come and then hit your box with. So the traffic actually flows, you know. So basically what happens is your GCE instances, they see traffic from addresses from this proxy subnet that you will have to create, associate with this load balancer. And we don't have this subnet. It's not one of the subnets that you already have. It's a specialized subnet only used by load balancers. So we'll need to create that first. So let's do that first. So that's what this step is here, this create proxy subnet. Here's the name. The name is not important, although just for consistency, I'm going to use it. So it needs to be in your same region that you're trying to operate in. And there's a purpose checkbox. And then you have to pick an IP block that is not already being used by your VPC, because this is a new subnet and it can't be used by anything that's within your normal block that you're being used. So I'm going to pick something outside that range. And they do suggest a /23, which is like 500 addresses, I think, or something like that. Okay, so if I can get this right, I have to go to a new subnet. So that means I need to go to VPC. Where's VPC? VPC network. I need to go into here. I need to create a subnet. Okay, add subnet. Okay, the name is, I'm going to call it proxy only. I think the reason why it's called proxy only is that these endpoints are acting as a proxy for your service, right? So they're basically, that's what proxies do, right? So that's why it's called proxy, and it's only being used for that purpose. The region is US Central 1, right? And here's the purpose. So normally it's set for none, which basically means it's basically used by you. Here we're going to use it for load balancing, and IP address range is 10.0.0.0/23. So that is right, not in the block. I think the block we have is 10.1.28, and then it goes up from there. So this should work. Okay, I guess it created it already, or it's thinking about creating it. Okay. I think what it'll do is see if so it should show up on this screen here. And of course it doesn't. Well, maybe it's here, I just don't see it. Oh, here it is right here. Proxy only subnet. Okay. That's all good. I think if you go in the detail view of this thing, you see your subnets, it'll show up on the bottom as reserved subnets for load balancers. So it's one way you know that what its purpose is. Okay, let's just go back to here. We did this. Oh, so now that we got the subnet, none of our existing firewall rules, well, not all, some of them don't know about this subnet. And in particular, we need to make sure, see, we're going to create 2 of them. So let's see. We're going to run a health check as part of our load balancer. What that means is that every so often, the load balancer will check your instances and make sure that they are alive. If they're not, it'll just drop it from the list of instances that it's going to route traffic to or forward traffic to. So one problem is this health. Right now the firewall rules don't see the default firewall rules. Let's remind ourselves what they look like. But they're not going to let traffic in for a lot of things that we want it to do. So we don't worry about IMCP, and we're not worrying about RDP and RDP. And then allow internal, this means allow, this is the one that will allow any traffic from anything within the current, let's just click on it here. So this one is basically set up, it says allow anything between anything, kind of a free for all, but it's between 10.128. The sources have to be all part of this 128 address, right? And that new proxy one is not in that block. And whatever the load balance health checkers, they also don't run in this IP space. So right now, nothing outside of 128.0.0 can run HTTP and actually be successful against our instances. And that's a problem. So what we'll need to do is we'll need to create some new firewall rules. And this is out of their example. So one is allow firewall, allow health check. Okay. So this is pasted here. So let's see. Okay. Okay, so what this is going to do is it's ingress, it's allow things inside, allow. We want to target basically, well, here we labeled all of our instances with backend. So we might as well just be specific and call it backend. So anything, this firewall rule will apply to anything that has backend label, which is all of our instances we created, right? And the source, they give us an example of the source. So this means any traffic from this address, comma, or this address. So this is where their health check functionality, this is the IP addresses it comes from. Okay, paste that in. Okay, so that's the source. And then we got a lot of protocols. So I think we want to do, and here they're basically suggesting all TCP traffic. Okay, so I mean, technically it could just be port 80, but we're just going to allow all TCP. So I think I just do this, and then that's it. Create. And then I want to create another firewall. So that was for the health checks, but the actual proxies that sit on that new proxy subnet need to basically forward HTTP traffic, which is one of these 3 ports, right, to our instances. So this one, I want to create a firewall rule. I'm going to name it this. Ingress, allow, tags, backend, and then source ranges. Okay, I think I know that one off the top of my head. 10.0.0.0/23. So that was the block. Those were all the proxies. And I want to allow TCP 80. Oh, here it is right here. 80, 80, 80, or 443. I want in. Okay. Okay, so now I can, so my backends now can get traffic from either the proxies, which are basically where the traffic comes from the load balancer, or from the health checks, which is also part of load balancer's configuration to make sure that your instances are healthy. Okay. Whew. So this is a lot of steps. Okay, so next thing we want to do is we want to create a health check. So this is the last kind of preparatory step before we actually do the load balancer. Again, the health check is what is used to make sure that your instances are healthy, right? So let's see if I can figure this out. Health checks. That's under GCE, I believe. Health checks here. Create a health check. Call it this. And well, it's a regional, US Central 1, TCP port 80. Yeah, I think everything else is left default here. Let's see. Just regional health check. Okay, that's the only 2 things I need to check. Everything else is defaulted. Okay. Now look at the health check. We can actually now create the load balancer. Okay. So the name is this, and see if I can just follow my nose with this. There's various steps to this. See if I can make sense of it. So this is under network services, load balancing. Okay. Create a load balancer. Okay, so start configuration. We want to use, so first of all, we want a layer 7 or known or HTTPS load balancer. That's the first choice. And then this is the second choice is, are you internal or external? So from the internet, no, only this is basically the internal version. And then there's a name. Okay, well, I already have that. We know this is a regional resource, right? So this is going to be in US Central 1, and it's on a particular network, so it's on a default network, right? You see that already, notice that there's a proxy subnet already in place, so it picked that, so that's good. So now we got to, okay, so now we got to tell it what backend we're going to use, and in this case, we have to create one of these backend services, right? So, right, I forgot about this. So the backend service, okay, here's the name. So you're basically just telling it, in this case, the instance group, right? And we're telling it it's running on port 80, which is what we're doing, right? And then we need to tell it what instance group to use, which we already have in place. Oh, it's funny. Oh, it's interesting that they have a protocol named port and timeout protocol. It's interesting that they have port 80 here, but then you have to put 80 in here. I'll just do it. Okay. What this has to do with here is how much this is going to try to have how it's going to try to, load up these instances, and it's going to say it's going to basically any given instance cannot receive any more than 80% of the CPU basically can't be more than 80%. Otherwise, this thing will not route traffic to it. Okay, so that's kind of that. We're going to leave this alone. It's done. That's done. Okay. We're going to specify a health check that we created earlier. That's to make sure that those backends are still alive. And then I create. Okay. Oof. Okay, so I got the backend done. I think you just go through this wizard here, routing rules. So we're not going to do anything special here. I think what do we have to do here for routing rules? Simple. Okay, we'll just follow our nose, I guess, is the answer. Okay, but okay, I know the default is what we want. So basically, we're going to say any traffic to any path is going to be basically sent to this service, which is a pull down, I think, right? So basically saying this backend service gets everything is what we did here. Okay, that's right. This minimize windows, like mess with me. Is there a button down here? No, I guess there is no button. Okay, front end configuration. Okay, copy this name. This is from their tutorial. That's why I'm using these names. Okay, so this is basically specifying what the front end looks like, what the traffic comes in. It's going to be HTTP. It's going to be, this here is, right, you're telling them what subnet in US Central 1 you're going to use, and there's only one right now that I already have in place. So this is where all the GCE instances are running. So this is on that diagram. Show you if I can find that diagram. What this is basically showing this forwarding rule here. So this basically means this load balancer is being exposed with an IP address in this subnet. So the traffic will flow in here into your load balancer. It comes out the proxy only subnet and then talks to your instances. Okay, so that's fine. And port 80 is what we want to do it. We don't need a label. Okay, we're done with this. And I believe we were finalized. A lot of detail here, but I think we did everything right. So hit create. Okay, so that's that step. Okay, so let's wait for this to build, and then we're going to test this out by running. Oh, we must well do this. We should create another instance that we can then use curl to test it with. So do this. I need to go back to here. I need to go to a instance. Where's all the GC instances? So there should be 2 already here right now. Those are the 2 in the instance group, right? They're here, but I want to create a 3rd one. I'm going to call it my instance, right? And I don't think I need to do things, but I just really just need it in the right region. Oh, I want it in US Central 1. Now this doesn't have to be in US Central 1, but the usual pattern is you want to keep your traffic within a region for cost reasons, right? You don't want to do cross-region traffic costs. So I'm gonna leave this all defaulted. Okay, so let's go back to, okay, that's creating. So I need to go back to, I should have opened up another tab. Go to load balancing, open tab. Right, so it's all here running. You can see it's, if you click on it, see what it says. So the front end, here's the front end. Traffic flows in the front end. It's going to come on, there's an IP address right here, 10.128.0.151. So it's picked an IP address to be the front end, right? Any traffic coming in there, basically the rules are kind of the middle part, like this is the logic of how it routes traffic between different backends. It says all traffic should go to the backend service, which is here. And the backend service is basically backed up by basically on port 80, and it's this instance group right here. And you can see that they're both healthy. And there's 2 of them. Right, so that's everything we expect. So one thing I need to do is I need to copy, I'll need copy a couple things. So let's, here's my instance I want to log into first. So let me just log into that instance first. So I need to bring up a window. Need to secure shell into this. Yes. Okay, so I'm here. The next thing I need to do is run curl against the front end of this load balancer, which is here. And if I did everything right, I'm hoping I did, I should be able to say curl HTTP, and there it is. So I hit an IP address, that's the load balancer's address. It decided that it was going to route to one of the 2 instances. And now, right now I don't have any, they both return the same thing. So you're not going to be able to distinguish which one is which, because they're both serving the same traffic or same web page, but it is round robin them between the 2 of them. Okay, I think that's it for this video. Survived another video. So let me stop recording.